G'day, Rockhound here. The fourth episode of the Mavericks Proving Grounds developer diary, known as Making Mavericks, has just come out from Automaton after a month-long hiatus from developer videos, while the team was focusing on completing the official game trailer and getting ready to showcase the game during the E3 Expo, which was held in LA in mid-June. This episode looked at characters that we'll see in the large-scale Battle Royale and MMO-based tactical shooter, including some of the options for character customization. There were plenty of new images shown, and I'll take my usual in-depth look at what you might have missed in the video in just a moment. After that, I'll give you a bunch of insider info that we got from Automaton CEO James Thompson via the Mavericks Discord just in the last day or so, including some initial details about how you will spawn into a Mavericks Battle Royale session. And the question is, were my previous predictions about a drone being involved correct? Anyhow, let's dive right into the Making Mavericks episode and see what we can find. The episode opens with part of the official game trailer, but this time it has sound effects of running and a forest fire added to it. Have a listen to how good the running sounds followed by burning trees sound here. That definitely sounds like what you would expect from part of a forest being engulfed in flames. Now, we haven't heard much in-game audio up to this point, but it's such an important part of making a game immersive, and these initial snippets that we've heard sound really great. In this first freeze frame, we see some accessories that can be carried by players, including a backpack, knee armor, a combat knife and knife sheath, along with a leg bag. Now, presumably these will all be customizable to some degree. Okay. In this shot, it appears that the devs have wised up to nosy types like me, who like to zoom into their computer screens to scavenge previously unnoticed details, because they've added a blur effect to this part of the video to obstruct our view. What can we deduce from the objects that are on the screen though? Well, firstly, they all appear to be about the same size, but appear in different forms, which suggests to me that it may be a single object or a type of object that is shown from a variety of different angles. Also, none of the objects appear to be particularly symmetrical, which makes me wonder if they actually have some sort of aerodynamic form to them. In which case, this could be the mystery device that will fly players into the Battle Royale part of the game, which the devs have previously been relatively tight-lipped about. I guess only time will tell what's really hidden on the screen. However, it's clearly something that is currently for the devs' eyes only. This developer, who apparently is called Coco, appears to have been putting in some pretty long hours. This freeze frame shows a character from one of the four main factions in the game, known as the Syndicate. The character is wearing gold rings over their gloves, so it'll be interesting to see if jewellery is actually a customizable item within the game. The image then morphs through a member of the Institute of Technological Resistance, or ITR, who carries some tools, maybe their version of jewellery, and into a member of the Circle of Lazarus, with their quirky bird skull on the shoulder. This image shows a communication device on the forearm of a member of the ITR, and we then move up to the gas mask covered head, where we see some sort of camera mounted on the shoulder. This faction is full of engineering types who use technology to their advantage.
Before we even touched pen to paper on these factions, we had a distinct narrative for these guys. We wanted to make sure that they all were unique in their motives, in their history. We wanted to make sure that they're all very separate. And this comes through in their designs. All their items, all their kind of skins that are attached to their faction, you'll be able to recognize that that's that faction.
You can hear from what Connor just said that the lore or narrative in this game is super important to the developers, and is definitely going to be a very strong element in the game. However, when he talks about the factions being very individual, this is somewhat contrasted by comments that senior producer Craig Scott and character artist Yogi Patel make here.
Customization and being able to mix and match different factions, gear, and different items is really important to, you know, the game, the studio, to myself, because I'm a strong believer in player expression. You know, you're in a game, you're in this world, and especially as we grow, we're a multiplayer game. People want to be able to express their unique style. And hey, if I want to wear a suit and have a skull mask, knock yourself out. That's awesome. That's cool. Do what you want. So we want to give players more and more abilities to express themselves in the game.
We want to be able to take an item that you really like from one faction and put it onto another item that you like from another faction. So, hey, I like the blazer that this guy in the Syndicate's wearing, so I want to put that blazer on top of these jeans, and I want it to fit in a way that's kind of unique to my style. And hopefully, because our factions are quite varied, you will find pieces of clothing from each one that will be somewhere in your liking.
Now, the possible problem or confusion for players here isn't so much with the Battle Royale part of Mavericks, where it'll be fine to wear whatever random combinations of factions clothing you please, but more with the MMO part of the game, which will be developed going into 2019. My understanding of this part of the game is that you are not only competing to progress your own character, but also aiming to progress the advancement of your faction. Now, if that's correct, then a mix and match approach to clothing, where you can choose items from any faction, as appealing as that will be as an individual, may lead to confusion and even firing on your own faction members. To clarify this, I've left a question in the Mavericks subreddit for the development team to hopefully detail that situation in the next round table video, which, if you haven't seen them already, is a question and answer session where they answer queries from the community. They usually record that session about a week after each Making Mavericks episode, so hopefully we'll have an answer to this soon. Here we get some insight to the development of the 4 factions' characters since they were first conceptualized, with the example given being the Circle of Lazarus characters from their initial concept through an intermediate stage to the final iteration that we saw in the E3 trailer. And here we see a wide variety of characters from the Syndicate, which is sure to be a popular faction. In this shot we have concept art for face paint on members of the last Special Forces, and then some variations of that faction's characters. Here we see how the shoulder adornment of the Circle of Lazarus character was developed, with it being based on pieces of some sort of display monitor that are then arranged to look like feathers. It's very clever and fits the ideology of the Circle of Lazarus, who praise technological relics. We can see that there's a lot of detail going into developing each character's look, and this might start to seem a bit overly detailed considering that the character animations in the game footage that we've seen so far seem a little clunky. Thankfully, Craig Scott addresses this directly here.
And that's not just down to, you know, how a character looks. We're experimenting with how a character moves. We want to push customization beyond just the purely visual and aesthetic to how your character interacts with the world and, you know, moves through it. You know, we have had feedback on the animation. People have seen pre-alpha and alpha gameplay, and we agree the animation isn't necessarily up to snuff. We want to push that. We started for the trailer, you'll see there's a lot of mocap in that. With that, we took a bunch of test mocap animations, started applying them to the character. Like, okay, this is instantly looking better. We can now have our own mocap rig in the studio. So we see a lot of men wandering around with, you know, tight lycra on. So we're starting to mocap all our animations. So the animations you're seeing right now aren't the final animations for the game. Hopefully we'll be able to show more of that soon. But if you see the quality that's in the E3 trailer, that's where we're heading, game animation quality-wise.
I'm very pleased to hear that all the pre-alpha animations will be replaced by motion capture suit animations, and that they're aiming to have movements like those that we saw in the trailer. The developers are clearly listening to the community feedback about the game already, and are addressing the concerns being raised quickly. This bodes well for the development of the game. Now that wraps up my analysis of the Making Mavericks episode. However, as I mentioned earlier, James Thompson, Automaton's CEO, dropped into the Mavericks Discord in the last day or so and provided us with quite a lot of new information, which I'd like to share with you now. One of the first things James addressed was the footage that we've seen of Mavericks so far. Specifically, he said there's been no proper gameplay footage of Mavericks shown yet. The things labelled as gameplay are literally pre-alpha demos that look nothing like Mavericks quality. We will start to show some later this month. We've just done a lot of technical work first. So from that, I think it's pretty clear that Automaton are going to present us with more polished gameplay within a few weeks, and it'll be interesting to see if some of the community who seemed to expect a final product when pre-alpha footage was being shown will actually change their tune. Next, James discussed the MMO part of the game. Firstly, he said that we'll have some amount of RPG elements when the game launches in December, because Mavericks is a world, not just a map. Further speaking to that, he noted that there's really not a menu within the game because you enter the game physically through the capital. He also said that the capital will be pretty crowded, especially when they've talked about 1,000 player games. But when it reaches capacity, there'll actually be multiple world instances that you can switch between if you don't like crowds. When asked if the MMO part of the game is going to have NPCs, quests, events, instances, raids, endgame, level progression, and a skill tree, James responded pretty succinctly by saying that it will have all of those things by year 2, starting off with an open world this year with more content being added over time, which is understandable considering how much content that will actually involve. One of the most exciting responses that we got from James when being asked a series of questions was when he was asked about what sort of lighting we should expect within the game, and he posted this in-game image, which is pretty stunning to say the least. The realism of the landscape, forest, and subtle atmospheric lighting here is unlike anything we've seen in a Battle Royale game to date. If the game environment looks like this throughout, it's going to draw a lot of attention to the game. James also went on to write about how Automaton are working with Improbable, the developer of Spatial OS, on an entirely new development methodology which will allow rapid development of the game. In addition to that, PC Games N recently posted an article, which I've linked below in the video description, where James stated that Automaton were aiming to update Mavericks at least as fast as Epic updates Fortnite, if not faster, which is a pretty exciting claim. Lastly, James confirmed my suspicions about the use of a drone to help you enter Battle Royale matches, and added that the drone will essentially act as a companion. So I can't wait to see how the drone mechanic works as we are delivered into the playing area. As soon as we have some footage of that, I will share it with you. Well, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about what you've seen in this episode in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider leaving a like. If you'd like to support this channel and see more from it, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.